This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Airbotics. The new generation of disinfection and odor removal is here with the advanced UVC technology of Airbotics, featuring a hydroxyl generator and an air scrubber in one. Designed by industry veterans and built right here in the US, Airbotics machines not only create hydroxyl radicals to eliminate odors and VOCs, but also use HEPA filtration to capture particulates. And they're already being used by restorers and training schools across the country for jobs of all shapes and sizes. Step into the future of restoration today and learn more about the Airbotics trial program and how to buy at airbotics.com. Hey restorers, thanks for checking out a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today I am joined by Ryan Geiger and James Parker. They are both from Vital Solutions, which makes Vital Oxide. I always get excited when I can have more product companies on here. This is a big area in the industry where I know restorers kind of struggle to make decisions, and there's new products that come to the marketplace, and your customers have different expectations of the things that you're bringing into their homes or their businesses or whatever, and a lot of decisions to make when it revolves around the solutions that you choose for your company. So I am going to toss it over to James first. He's the GM at Vital Solutions, and I'm going to have you share a little bit about your background and the background of the company, because the company has been around for a while, and you've chosen to make a entry into the market kind of in a different way, even though you've already been here, but people maybe didn't know it. So, James,
Sure.
go for it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So thank you all for your time. So Vital Solutions and Vital Oxide, our premier product, is really an outgrowth of another company my father started called the Ecology Works. And that was based on environmental controls for allergens. So he developed and patented applications for different pesticides in homes to take care of fleas. And then from there, it was dust mites. And then from there, he was looking at, well, the real problem was allergen, the byproduct of the dust mites, cockroaches, and so on and so forth. And that's when we really started getting into the chlorine dioxide technology that's the base for our product, Vital Oxide. So it was first that, and then from there, it kind of grew out into mold and mildew. We did a lot of restoration work before the product was on the market. I actually worked in restoration, crawling under crawl spaces, dry ice blasting, taking out, sagging ceilings and insulation and all that fun stuff. And we were using this technology as part of clearing houses for mold and mildew. I want to say not Andrew, maybe it was a while ago in South Florida, which is where we're based. So after seeing the efficacy there and the value, we decided to take on the burden or the heavy workload of getting a new EPA product registered. So bootstrapping it as we did a lot of that ourselves. So hands-on experience, and really that is what Solutions is. It's an R&D company at heart. We've been doing it, like you said, for quite some time now. We were one of the first companies to do robot fogging in hospital rooms, electrostatic spraying, carpet sanitizing with devices. So our wheelhouse is kind of taking novel applications and getting it through EPA claims. So yeah, it still keeps us busy today. There's always a new bug or new virus, bacteria, mold, or mildew to add. So
There is. Really quick before I toss it to Ryan, were you at the front edge of like allergens and figuring out how to treat allergens in homes then? I feel like that is kind of a more new, not super new, but last 25 years or so, maybe
yeah.
that people realized allergens in your home and maybe there's a way to help. So were you kind of at the front edge of that?
Yeah, well, a lot of that was asthma. And so you had a lot more people having asthmatic reactions. And some of those things are not specific to one allergen. It's kind of like you're filling a cup with water, and then that last drop, this last little thing tips it over and you have the reaction. It's not necessarily one specific allergic reaction when it comes to asthmatics. So that was our background in that. And a lot of that was really driven by other companies' innovation. So we were doing really well in flea and tick, but then this product Frontline, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's the drops, right, that you put on the collar. And that just like took us out of the market. And we're like, oh, wow, what else can we do with this type of technologies? And that's how we got into allergens. And yeah, so that was a big push. It still is a lot of work that we do with our sister company, Ecology Works. So
interesting. Okay. All right, Ryan, take it away. Introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Ryan Geiger. I have been in the industry going on 20 plus years now. I was just thinking about that. It's been quite some time, but on both sides of the fence, which is which I think is pretty unique. So I was a contractor for about 10 years, and then on the chemical manufacturing side up until this point. And I think where my passion comes in for the chemical side is just being the guy that was actually doing the work, kind of like James attested to. I was the guy in the Tyvek suit, sanding, scrubbing, wire brushing, walking around in the sewage. So I've walked in those boots, if you will, and I know kind of what's out there, and anything that obviously can make the job safer, a little easier, more user friendly. I'm a big proponent of. So I'm very passionate about this particular product because, again, safety features, the chemistry behind it, and all of the claims, registrations, features, benefits that it has. It's really unique to the industry. So very excited to help launch this into the industry.
So, James, in the beginning, you were talking about how there are always different things coming out and different things that change the world of disinfection or whatever that may be. And COVID, I think, comes to mind for a lot of us as like the latest thing that's maybe kind of changed the landscape of disinfection and what people expect. What kind of changes did you see on the product side of things when it came to like chemicals and disinfectants and stuff after COVID?
Sure. So a lot of new entries. So you had a lot of like a boom and bust in that wave. And we were very fortunate to like be established and have like a good strong base in electrostatic spraying and those type of things to begin with. But so many not a lot of new technologies, but a lot of people stretching the truth, which also made the consumer, the applicator, the customer a lot more educated. So before you'd be like, well, what's an SDS? And a lot of people wouldn't know. They'd be like, what are we talking about? You'd be like, hey, here's a master label. And they'd be like, oh, why do I care? And now they're way more educated. Their expectations, I'd say, are a lot higher because they've kind of, the trial by fire that everybody went through and the amount of chemical that was applied during the peak of that time was crazy. So you got to see a lot of things that were either stretching the truth exposed and some things that maybe weren't known now known. So it was good in that sense. I would say it was also really bad and a lot of people overbuying and being stuck with a lot of products, not just ours, but inventory levels being very, very high for a long time. And then you'd see people kind of selling expired stuff and just doing all this kind of things that you typically wouldn't expect. So it became a lot more educated customer on the chemical buy side, which is great for everybody, I think, long term.
Brian, anything that you want to add to that? Anything that you witnessed being in the industry in that time? That was a crazy time.
It was.
Crazy.
It was absolutely crazy. Yeah. What I saw, like James just alluded to, was just people coming out of the woodwork, as far as having a disinfectant or becoming a contractor to do disinfecting. So I think a lot of things got exposed in that regard, and a lot of good on the other side is the consumer, if you will, or the homeowner, the building owner, became a lot more educated to actually, a professional versus somebody coming in and doing a blow and go is what we were calling them for a while.
Yeah.
And so it really shed some light on the industry is how much time, dedication, education that we put into what we do versus somebody that can, just spritz some juice out of a gun and say, yeah, hey, you're clean and disinfected. Good luck. So I think a lot of good came out of it for us.
What do you two recommend, and maybe Ryan, you take this one first. What do you two recommend to contractors who are trying to figure out what product is best for their company and to use in the homes and businesses that they're serving when there are a number of products out there? And especially if you're going through distributors, I think it's a little bit different as well when the contractors are trying to choose. So how do you educate them on making the best choices for what fits their customers, their demographic, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and there are some really great products out there. And again, you're not going to please everybody. So, one thing in particular would be odor. There's some products out there that are fantastic, and they have some odors, and people just don't like that. So, that would be one thing. Maybe try to find something more neutral, doesn't have a fragrance per se. One of the main things, obviously, now is safety, not only just for the customer, but the actual employee. Those guys are going into some horrific situations, floodwater, sewer, backups, things like that harbor some really nasty germs, bacteria, things like that. So safety would be one of the key ones. And then obviously you want to make sure that you have all the kill claims necessary, registrations and all that stuff that, you know what your job is. You're going to go on a daily basis and typically run into these type of things. So you want to make sure your bases are covered in that regard. And then, lastly, I think, price might be a point as well. So I think it's kind of three things, right? Safety, efficacy, kill claims registrations, and then obviously make something reasonable to where, it's going to work out for the company.
Yeah. What about kind of best practices? James, anything you want to add to that? And then maybe talk a little bit about best practices as well when it comes to using a product like Ryan referred to, I say spray and pray, but you had a kind of a different name to that. But there's more to properly actually cleaning than just spraying something on and walking away. Usually there's more to it than that to truly clean something. So James, go for it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, kind of circling back like the COVID cowboy type stuff that everybody saw. But no, I mean, there's methods and practices, and best practices are, what you should be following consistently. And that goes a lot into training, and that goes a lot into manufacturer support. And that goes into the data that the manufacturers can generate to back up the claims and applications that they want to do. So that's really like what we do, write SOPs, make sure that you have the tools that you need to be able to complete jobs, and also the collective wealth of like, hey, stay away from these type of situations too. These are things that can be negatives that we want to avoid as well. But yeah, always follow best practices. I mean, you can keep it stupid simple if you want, but I mean, you got to have respect for all these chemicals that you're working with, because there are pluses and minuses to all of them. And following the labeling is a weird one that most 90% of people don't know. But like, I just spray it, wipe it, and then I go. I mean, this industry is unique in that they are well versed and well trained in how to deal with mold and mildew and so on and so forth, and accredited in those things. So we don't want to make our process more complicated than what's needed, but it's typical. I think the best thing is the outcome at the end of it. You don't want to, we call unintended byproducts is something that comes up a lot, where it's like you're trying to do this job and then you have an unintended consequence that has a negative impact for both the homeowner, the consumer, the applicator. And those are things that we want to get out in front of and avoid through training.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about mycotoxins a little bit. This kind of goes along the lines of, you said that there's always these new things coming out, and mycotoxins were talked about a little bit before the pandemic, but I think that they're talked about even more now. James, speak a little bit to what mycotoxins are, and then maybe we can go into that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, they're a secondary toxin that's produced off of fungi, so molds and mildews. Most of the mycotoxins you see are grain-based things. These are like food production facilities. That's a big issue. Homeowners, it's not necessarily as big unless you have mold and mildew growing. So you have to fix the problem there. Where's the moisture? Where's the water? Where's it coming from? How is this still growing? And then clearing a house after spraying or fogging would be something that we take care of. So our original foray into mycotoxin was around food manufacturing facilities and looking at that as a way to help for agricultural issues. A lot of it would be based on like poultry, where if feedstocks and those type of things would be a source where you'd see a lot of mycotoxins, and then the birds ingest that, they don't grow as fat as fast, which nobody wanted. And then we're like, all right, this is great data that we've developed third party. Where else can this go? And it really tied into, mold and mildew applications. So
Ryan, are you seeing anything on the contractor side as you're talking to contractors? They're looking for like, how do I deal with these in our customers' homes or whatever that may be?
Yeah, I've seen, again, the more the contractors just educated and asking great questions, where before, it just wasn't happening. They were concerned with, safety, what does it kill and all that stuff. But now we're getting really educated with the mycotoxin stuff. There's all kinds of other studies too. And that's what's cool about our company, is that we've already done all of those things for you guys, so that, if you ask us, we have it in white paper and can prove that our product is, the right choice for whatever situation.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the private labeling aspect of this because we were talking a little bit offline prior to starting this conversation. And James, you were talking about how this is pretty common in other industries, but not
Mhm.
as common in restoration. So, what are some of the value for the companies that you're seeing maybe outside the industry or inside the industry who choose to private label? Like, what are some of the benefits to private labeling a product that matches then your specific brand?
Yeah, I'd say compliance across the field is, you know what you're going to get every time in the bottle. You have your brand recognition there. So throughout your franchise network or however your network's set up, you know you're going to get the same outcome with the same chemical. And it also gives you retention internally too, to say, all right, we know that you guys have this much, this is what you're using, these jobs make sense, this is the right application, kind of circles back to the training aspect of it, getting out front of problems where if you have it all a booklet together of this goes here, decision trees are simple at that point. So you have, the same hamburger in the same city and the same as like McDonald's would be, your outcome's going to be the same. So,
Yes.
I mean, financially, there's a lot of intricacies that go into regulated products like pesticides. So that's a decision that would need to be weighed on each company's preference. But aside from that, retention, compliance.
Okay. All right. Okay, I love stories. So before we wrap it up, you both have been in the industry, you've both been on the contractor side and on the product side. So I'm curious, some like an amazing story that you have to share from a loss or whatever that may be. I mean, maybe it's mushrooms growing from the ceiling or what grass on the carpet, or I don't know. There's all sorts of things that have happened. So, James, I'm going to start with you on a story, and then Ryan, you can go second.
Sure. I mean, for me, the gnarliest ones are always pet stain and odor.
No.
And we had these people that were using their house kind of like as a kennel, and it was a basement. Tons, big Dobermans, big, large dogs, all those kinds of things. And the amount and smell that you would see from upstairs when you went downstairs, which is gnarly. So that's something you might not think of when you think of disinfectant products, but with us, it's odor control. So pet stain and odor, that was not fun. It's the mushrooms. I kind of have the opposite story there, where when we grow mushrooms for businesses, you have to have like a really sanitary facility going on, because if you get the wrong bacteria or wrong things growing, you can lose your whole crop. So I did do a lot of work on that. The very worst one I ever had was Asheville prisons, where we were doing demos in there and we would spray down the holding goods for homeless people, their goods, because they would keep it. And
Yeah.
then the guys were like, well, what does this do for pepper spray? I was like, I don't really know, man. They're like, so we're gonna pepper spray this cell and then you can go in and spray it all down
Yeah, you go,
afterwards.
you
Yeah.
let me know.
So that was, not what I thought I'd be doing that day. But yeah, trying to see what our product had the effect on pepper spray and how fast we could reduce the entry time there. It wasn't a home run, but it was a lot shorter than it would have been without. But yeah, that was
That is pepper spray. Bless. I
yeah.
okay. Ryan, what about you?
Wow, with the prison story, it's a quick one. And then I have another one, but yeah, one of the craziest things was we got asked to come to a prison and remove some mold staining in the shower stalls and in some of the cells and things like that. They were having some kind of issue, and it was a psych prison. So the prisoners are allowed to walk around freely. They're not like in their cells 24 hours a day. So we walked in and there they are. They're just walking right around you. And so they trained us. We had to do some training prior to. You have to walk to your back for your back to the wall, like you're going down the wall, so nobody can get behind you. And I have a drill in my hand, a mixer, and all kinds of things. And I'm walking down this, and the prisoners are just walking by you, and it's just the environment. It's like, is this guy gonna freak out, or what's
Yeah.
going on? But
And
those
you've
things
got like
happen.
a weapon in your hands. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was wild for me. It was like, yeah, walk your back towards the wall. I'm like, what is going on here? Um, so that was a wild thing. That's just a little glimpse of the environments that we get ourselves into sometimes. But
Yeah. Yep.
one of the ones that stick out to me as far as like liability and making sure that you are using the safest stuff, the strongest stuff around. We had a sewer backup, and it was like an 85-year-old lady. She lived by herself, and she was really close to becoming put in a nursing home. And her basement sewer backup about 4 inches.
Ooh,
And
that's a big backup.
it was horrible. She was a hoarder, and it came over the top of my boots, and she had like a trailway only in her basement, and everything was just, you can imagine, was covered. So we had to get some temp labor, involved in that because it was very, very intense. And I remember doing my measurements and trying to, monitor these guys and talk to the homeowner, make the family feel comfortable, and a lot of like sentimental things coming up out of that basement that, nobody knew were even there. And one thing that I noticed is these temp workers would come up out of the basement with their Tyvek suits on, but they'd be ripped, like almost completely up to their hips and off their face. And the guy was like wiping his face and sewage all over. And I'm going, my gosh,
Don't.
they got, well, I mean, just hopefully, the product is doing what we say, if it's safe, because you can't control some of that stuff is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they don't care. They
No.
could care less. I mean, I think I saw the guy go in the back out of the truck and start eating a sandwich, and he still had sewage and stuff. Although it was just unbelievable. But
That is true.
this
They
goes
don't care. It's so hot.
no, this
And
goes
once
into
you're going in a
liability.
job,
Yeah.
it's like they're not thinking about like I could get something on this sandwich and make myself really sick. Like it's just let's get the job done and
Yeah.
not be so hot. But
And we had to sign like waivers and all kinds of stuff after that because I just couldn't believe that they were just down there in that muck. And some guys are like, "No, I'm good. No eye protection, no nothing." I was like, "Wow, it's definitely not the most glorious job in the world, But one thing I do want to say is what's cool about it is it's a lot of people that have big hearts and they want to help people in the end, and that's what we're doing. We're helping people
yes.
in their worst state sometimes.
So for people who want to know more about Vital Oxide, where should they go? Who should they reach out to? Best resources.
Yeah, so vitaloxide.com.
Mhm.
James and I are very, I would say, very hands-on, aggressive, responsive. My email is rgeiger@vitalsolutions.com. My phone number is 636-485-3120. Do not hesitate to call. I'm
Love
a
it.
contractor at heart. I sleep like this. You can call me at 3 a.m. I'll probably answer. Again, it's just, I like people trying to do, the same thing. So, don't hesitate to reach out.
Love it. James, anything you want to add to that? I know that people will be able to see you at some trade shows this spring, and you've already done some trade shows, but there's definitely ways to find you guys.
Yeah, vitaloxide.com, the best way. I mean, all social media platforms too.
Yep.
We're all there. So
Perfect. Anything else that either of you want to add before we wrap it up? I appreciate you chatting with me and sharing your insight and the history of the company. I love hearing how companies evolve and where they've started and how you've managed to grow and innovate and all of that. I love hearing stories like that. So thank you very much for joining me.
thank you.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
having us, Michelle. Keep your eye out. We're going to be at the trade shows this year, so come by and see us.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.